So I've been checking out the Lauten Audio LS-308 and 208 for about a year and a half now. And there's some really unique mics that are specifically designed to record drums, but they're large diaphragm, okay? Usually I wouldn't even bother trying a large diaphragm on drums because they tend to pick up a lot of sound around the mic and behind it. And small diaphragms can work because the off-axis bleed is actually fairly pleasing and very smooth, but not usually the case for large diaphragms. So Lauten Audio has kind of created something very unique here, and I want to show you some tests that I've done with these mics, but also kind of explain the philosophy behind why this would even be needed and why it makes a production better. So to kick it off, going back to the organic recording method, we have musician, room, and sound. And this really falls under the sound category. And under sound, we have use fewer steps, committing to a sound, and use real instruments. And for today, we're going to look at using fewer steps. And this is all about not having to do a ton of editing, a ton of gating. Really, if we can just get the sound of the floor tom nice and clean without having to do a ton of editing and just weird trickery during mixing, well, then we would be so much better off. We also want to fix it now and not later. So if we can use a specific microphone that will eliminate cymbals, that would be great, you know? We don't want to fix it later. We want to fix it now. So I want to play you some examples, but then I came up with kind of a really interesting way of listening to this. And it's not actually listening to the toms. It's listening to the cymbals and how the bleed that we're so used to, how that bleed kind of gets into our kind of baseline drum mix. And it's so cool because we don't actually hear that effect with these mics. Okay, so check this out. This is kind of a very basic mix. The only thing EQ'd here is kick drum. That's also a 208 inside the kick drum, 208 on the snare, and 308s on the toms. I also have a cymbal that's right above this floor tom here, and then of course the ride cymbal and cymbal over here. We have different positions for today. First one is just kind of a simple groove. Check it out. Listen how little the hi-hat is. I mean, there's barely any hi-hat in that snare mic. That's fantastic. I mean, that hadn't quite occurred to me until I did this test. And the LS-208, it's really designed as a vocal microphone that's kind of like an SM7B kind of situation or RE20, but you want more sensitivity, more detail like a large diaphragm, but you want that kind of isolation of a dynamic. Again, usually if you were to have like a live vocal performance in a room with a band, you wouldn't even bother using a large diaphragm. I mean, it's just not going to work. You're going to end up having a room mic with somebody trying to sing a vocal part into the mic, right? They're going to be singing into a room mic at that point. And in fact, some of my courses talk about this, about how you can actually use background vocalists, things like that, if they're in the live room, you actually treat them that way. You treat them as a room mic for your drums. You try to get the balance right between the vocalists to actually make it work. You kind of get a 2-for-1 that way. But, you know, for this, it's the 208 on snare. Just so happens that it's just a fantastic snare mic. They even came out with a shrunk down version of this called snare mic. I hear it's a little bit different. So we're just kind of focusing on the originals today, the 308 and the 208. They also have the tom mic, just came out. So again, I hear it's a little bit different, super cardioid. And this mic here is different in that it has two capsules. See that? We got the front of the mic. We have the back of the mic. And what that does is when you line up two cardioids, one in front of the other, it actually creates what's called a second order cardioid. Now, this is something that's totally new to me. As soon as I got these mics, I was like, what in the world is second order cardioid? But it is a crazy amount of rejection. Now, part of me thinks, well, why doesn't this have so many phase issues if there's like, you know, basically two microphones being added together? And I think that's why it starts to roll off at about 7K. According to the website, it says due to the cancellation, it starts to roll off at 7K. And that makes more sense now that I think about it. But really the attack of a floor tom is like 5K, so I'm okay with that, you know? So anyways, back to the test. Now here's some kind of a interesting way to look at this is let's take kind of our standard mix and let's just pretend that we're going to have our toms muted. So in the bottom left of your screen there, I have the faders and the tom mics are totally down, okay? And let's just see what the standard drum sound sounds like. Okay, so that's kind of our kind of gated out tom mic sound. It's a lot cleaner. You don't have any of those like usual vibrations of the toms kind of humming along as they do. But let's add in our tom mics, even though they're not even getting played right now. And let's just see if the texture changes of our drum sound. You hear that? The cymbals sound the same, which kind of blew me away. I was kind of doing a lot of my testing on just listening to the mics, but I realized when I can just leave my tom mics going like literally louder than any other part of the kit and it doesn't totally jack up the sound, like that's really pretty cool. I mean, that ride cymbal doesn't sound weird or funny, and these tom mics are, you know, pretty much going full blast, so to speak. It's just nuts. I mean, I don't hear any difference between when I have the tom mics on and when I have them off. And this is really cool. You know, I think that was a better way to judge it than the way that I've kind of been doing it, which is like, oh yeah, the actual tom sounds pretty good. But, and it does sound good. But when I realized that kind of what's in between the tom hits doesn't destroy the drum sound, that's actually pretty cool. Now, let's actually kind of go the more direct approach here and just listen to the toms and listen to that bleed. This is kind of the way that I've been evaluating it for a while here. Yeah, so really good. There's a cymbal that's, I'd say about 8 to 10 inches above this microphone right here. Like, it's literally right over it. There it is right there. So, I mean, that's really good. It's basically a kind of a dynamic mic level of bleed, but way smoother. And I can prove it to you. I mean, you don't have to trust my word on this. I have all sorts of audio examples as usual. The audio speaks for itself. Here's an example. Here is the 308 versus the Audix D4. Yeah, so I definitely think that for the clarity, I would say that the D4 wins for the clarity, and that's why I like that mic. For the quality of the bleed and that smoothness, I would say that the 308 wins for that. And for floor tom, kind of the biggest issue is getting the fullness out of the drum. That's the last thing that you want to have an issue with. So we're definitely getting fullness out of the floor tom. That's good. It'd be nice if we can get some clarity and get some attack, but really it's the fullness and then it's avoiding cymbal bleed. Those are my two main issues that I'm always looking for, and that it definitely does. So the fact that we have it as a condenser, we have a basically a more detailed microphone, I mean, that's huge. Here's some other examples here. We have a close distance and a far distance. Yeah, so we definitely can hear that the clarity came right back. So it's really just a matter of sculpting the sound with the microphone. Again, going back, we want to fix it now, not later. Record like you can't mix it. That means going in and fixing it at the mic. Adjust it at the mic until you get the right sound that you want. And so that means, okay, if we want clarity, it's not a matter of buying some shiny new plugin that's on sale or whatever. Honestly, some plugins are almost like a Happy Meal toy of the week. I mean, how many possible dumb little things can we get, you know, for a toy and then it breaks, you know, a day later? We don't need extra stuff. We need some good technique that'll actually pull us through and raise the quality of your production. And to do that, we fix it at the mic. We fix it now, not later. And so with a little bit of mic technique, we get the clarity back. Now this is an extreme. I mean, look how high this mic is. That, you know, this is like probably 6 inches above the tom, and it's pointing way over here, okay? So this is extreme. But, I mean, I'm just kind of proving a point here, you know? So, yeah, that's the toms. Let's have a listen to kick and snare real quick. Again, I'm really impressed by the hi-hat bleed combined with the overhead. So these mics have a built-in high-pass filter, and the 208 I've noticed has a little bit of some kind of almost kind of some sub rumble in it, and so I've been using the high-pass of 50 because usually the snare is honestly around 200. So 50 hertz is barely anything, but it takes care of some of that rumble, and I think that it's really because of it's a condenser and it's extremely loud next to a snare drum. So I think it does have a little bit of kind of some deep kind of pumping in the low end, but that's the only thing that I would say needs to be addressed in mixing. And in fact, I've done it with a very simple high pass, but you could do this at the mic as well. So yeah, right there at 45, and I just think that's just because it's a condenser and it's extremely loud next to a snare. But from what I've heard, the snare cannot be overdriven. Like, it has a ton of headroom. So you're not going to overdrive the thing. You're not going to find its limit. And for this issue, I would just, you know, just kind of high pass a little bit. And I usually kind of do a little bump anyway, just to kind of get some fullness. Let's see how the hi-hat bleed is with EQ with like a big boost. Wow. Yeah, usually I'm boosting hi-hat when I do that, but it's just boosting the snare, which is actually pretty cool. Yeah, that's actually pretty incredible how well that works. I hadn't actually tried this test yet, but that takes EQ really well. So, again, you know, I'm not trying to necessarily pitch these mics. I think that what they've done is they have a physicist that designs these mics, and it's just a matter of good design. Okay, going back to these philosophies of using the right tool, actually design something from the beginning to get a job done. So definitely worth checking out. The 308's, I think, $100 more than the tom mic, and maybe a similar difference between the 208 and the snare mic. But yeah, let me know what you thought of this video. Talk to you soon.